Welcome to Fairytale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairytale Access. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Jessica Mueller. She goes by J.E. Mueller, and she has some fascinating fairy tale-like stories to share with us. Fire Song, Wicked Grid, A Princess with a Curse, with a touch that can kill. And then she has Unexpected Brew, which is a modern-day Cinderella story. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, why fairy tales? How did you get into this?
Kind of on accident as far as fairy tales went. I've always enjoyed writing fantasy. I love working with magic. And Fire Song wasn't intended to be so much on the fairy tale side. I just thought it would be a lot of fun to give a princess a chance at finding her own solution to a curse. But of course, princesses are not taught how to do that. So it happened naturally. It just, all of a sudden, I'm, 6 books in, and it's like, oh, these all kind of are fairy tales, aren't they?
So, with an Unexpected Brew, how did that all come about?
An Unexpected Brew actually was largely inspired by my rewatching the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cinderella movie back with Brandy. I just watched it again on a whim, that little fairy tale thing, you want to have some fun. And I saw it, I'm like, this would be really cool in a modern setting. But what would Cinderella do if she wasn't slaving away after the family, all the cooking and cleaning? And I thought it would be fun to have a family business, but what would keep someone tied down to them? And I actually had worked in a coffee shop for about 5 years, so I knew a lot about that setting, the ins and outs, and it just blew up from there. It was just so much fun thinking about magic and coffee and the charms you could do with it.
Yeah. You did great stuff, because with Cinderella stories, you expect it to go in a particular sequence. And you really did a good job. The title, Unexpected Brew, completely fits because it was just an unexpected twist to an old story in a very modern setting. And it just completely takes you away. It really, really did.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun going with it. I wanted to keep a couple of the key points that are in the original fairy tales that we all grew up with, not so much the Grimm fairy tales. So I knew a chance meeting would be fun, finding out that he was the prince but not really, and then of course the ball. You have to have a ball.
And I love the acknowledgments that you put in at the end. Steph, Liz, Christelle. So I'll play this small part in helping this book come to life. We're all dying to know what Liz did, though. Because years ago, something so hilarious, too, that it made it into the book.
So that was a direct quote from her, made it into the book. She had said something along the lines in a text message because we were going to meet up. I'm sorry for who I am as a person, so I'm going to be late. And that comes up with Arnessa when she realizes, oh, shoot, I am out of time. I need to be out there now, but I need another 5 minutes. So she's like, sorry for who I am as a person. I'm running late. So it was really fun to be able to include that exchange with my friend actually into the novel, since it was really that humorous. Just a simple, hey, oops, it's me. I'm late again, but...
You are really good with comical relief in this book, too. I love the way it just flowed, and it wasn't forced in any way, but it had me chuckling throughout. It was a lot of fun to read.
Thank you. I really like to make dialogue and conversations just as lifelike as possible. So I do pull things from what my friends say, how we all talk. Everyone has just a little bit different way of saying things, and that just always works out so much better than trying to make it completely perfect. We don't talk perfectly. We don't interact perfectly. It's just so much more interesting when people can actually be themselves. So characters should be able to be themselves too.
Did you go to school for writing or English? What was your major?
I didn't go directly for writing. I did take a lot of creative courses in high school and college, but my primary focus was actually psychology. So psychology and sociology were my primary courses.
Well, that kind of fits into the Fired song. That was really twisted. And I love the whole angels and demons. And it wasn't set up in like a Christian fantasy novel. It wasn't set up so much in that way. It had more meat and grab to it. And just the fact that she had this horrendous curse that killed people with a touch, and all the trials and tribulations she had to overcome. That was amazing. And you've hit on a lot of social issues about hiding things that happen to people, not getting them the help they need when they need it. It was really well done. So how did you spin this? What did you draw from?
So the version that got published was actually based on a story I wrote my sophomore year of high school. That's where the idea initially came from, of wanting to have a princess try to solve her own curse, since at the time I was finding a lot more books where it's always the guy being the hero, getting everything just like that, no big deal at all. And it's like, well, it would be more fun to give the princess a try. It would be more fun to see how she handles it, but in that same setting where she's not given all that. And of course, trying to keep it how it would still be with any family. They're going to try their best. They're going to try and help, but their way of going around it might not be the best, like keeping it a secret. It's like, oh no, we got this. Our family can handle it. No, not with curses. You really can't. But she tried. Somewhat, kind of, not really. So it was fun.
Wow. All right. But the adventurous spirit that this girl has, is that you in any way? Do you like to travel? Have you traveled on your own?
Not really. I like doing a little bit of traveling, but I'm always the one being pulled into it. I'm not the one going out and being adventuring. It's not like The Hobbit, like, yes, we're going to do it. It's more like, hey, so we're going to go out and go do this. We're going to do some hiking, some water walking. Why don't you come with? And it's like, oh, I guess I don't have anything better to do. So a lot more of my friends are those adventurous people. And actually, this story was written for a friend who is very adventurous, who could spend 2 weeks at Yellowstone, roughing it, camping, hiking, dealing with bears and raccoons, and not my thing. So a lot I pulled from my friends on that side.
Do you always go for happily ever after?
Yes and no. So everything I have published is happily ever after. There's been a couple of things I've tried to write, try to make more grim and dark, and it doesn't come naturally to me. It's been a lot harder, and I find that I just really want them to be happy after all I put them through. It seems like that should be their reward for having that touch-based fire curse.
Yeah, you do put us through a lot, Jessica, by the way. I was up for like 4 nights reading this because once you start, you just can't put it down. And it's 535 pages, so it's up until the middle of the night. But I love that it's action-packed. The characters are rich and well-developed. So are these your first books out, or did you write before?
Fire Song is my first book out. I wrote a lot beforehand, but I never had gone through the process of cleaning it up and trying to show other people until Fire Song. So Fire Song and its sequel were the next ones. An Unexpected Brew came after that. So that was the third book out.
So how many books are in the series?
For Fire Song, there are 3 books. It goes Fire Song, Spirit's Lullaby, and Dreamer's Melody. And that series does answer everything. I made sure I had some beta readers on there, so all the main questions got answered. So that's all taken care of. An Unexpected Brew is actually a part of a fairytale collection. The first 3 can be read in whatever order. And there's going to be one that pulls them all together so you can see all your happily ever after people for one last time.
Well, you did leave us with some questions, and it wasn't a tragic, like, cliffhanger, but it did have elements of it, and you're like, okay, where is book 2? Can't wait. And then it's so nice that it's already out, since usually you're waiting and, you know, you're stalking the authors like, please, hurry up.
Yes.
How do your fans help you with feedback?
Really just a whole bunch of different feedback. I'll get messages, especially on Facebook and Twitter, and just my favorite one was a Twitter one. Someone messaged me. She's like, so my mom got your book from a friend and I saw it there and I picked it up, and when's the next one coming out? And she asked a whole bunch of questions. She was super curious about things I was doing with it and things she wanted to see. So it was really cool because at that point in time, it was almost published. So I'm just like, ooh, I hit that point, I hit that point, I hit that point. But I didn't want to give anything away. So it's just a lot of fun going back and forth, seeing what things I actually have ready for fans and what things, you know, they might be interested in later.
What are you planning next?
Right now, I'm working on something that is high fantasy again. It's actually a weird combination of things. It's very Pride and Prejudice, Regency vibes, but in a modern setting. The main character is going to college and everything, but in that very fantasy setting, I decided to make sure everyone had something extra supernatural about them. So what would be the Bennett family, they all can fly. So they all have wings and they're all going to college, and the person who's the main character, she decided to, right now I'm working on her joining a sorority of monster slayers. So it's going in a really interesting direction. I'm going to try and follow some key elements that I loved from Pride and Prejudice, but it's going to be definitely its own adventure.
What were your favorite books growing up that brought you into this whole fantasy world?
The book that definitely did that was Ella Enchanted. I love that book. Original curse-based fandom right there. And just everything with that grabbed me, got me into fantasy. I had read a couple of other of the popular books back then, like Redwall, but didn't grab my attention so much until I think it was late grade school, junior high, when Harry Potter and the Pendragon series came out, and those grabbed me again, and I have not been out of fantasy since.
What about where you live? What state do you live in?
I live in Illinois, the Midwest, central Illinois at that, so there's not too much magical around here. Lots of corn and corn and corn, and a couple of bean fields.
Oh, but were there people or countryside in your state that helped influence the story? Because some of the scenes, and especially the magical village and the places that she went that were hidden in the mountains, those are vividly described. So what did you draw on for that?
So that whole section was actually drawn from a hiking adventure where me and my friends, Brittany and Jeremy, we had gone off trail and gotten lost. So we didn't really care. We had hours to kill, and we were just walking around and everything, and we're like, oh, we think we're about here, and we really weren't. And we eventually started seeing through the trees all these houses and stuff for a neighborhood, and it just looked so cute and magical, like it would be a little village. And we're just like, where are we? This is not where we're supposed to be. So it was a fun adventure, and we did eventually find the trail, obviously. We got back just fine, but those off-trail adventures inspired a lot.
Well, what about sports or activities? Because there's a ton of different things going on. There's horseback riding, there's fighting, there's, that ability to blend in. Where did you draw on for that? Because it's such a creative story. I want to know, where you got the details.
A lot of that is through different books I've read and activities I've had friends do and describe. Horseback riding, I've actually never done. I've never been on a horse at all, not even as a small child. They stick up there and pretend to ride. I've had friends describe it. I actually had a couple of people, since there is a lot of horses in medieval fantasy. I'm like, so how long would it take a horse to do this? How far can they travel with people? How far with this, this, and this? So just a lot of questions. As for the blending into the forest, that I definitely pulled from so many fantasy novels with assassins and ninjas. It's like, how would they do that? How do you get yourself to blend in? It's definitely a combination of the sure footing, the being aware of your surroundings, and just digging deeper into that, trying to figure out what would be possible and trying it myself. Just walking through the little bit of yard, through trees and stuff, seeing how you could do it yourself really helps.
Okay, I can see that. But your skill at writing and bringing us into a story for a total escape, where you're just thinking about what's going to happen next, is outstanding. And you look so sweet and young, and the curse is evil. So how did you come up with a curse where this poor girl has to grow up knowing that by simply touching somebody, giving a hug, could kill them?
I'm not really sure what inspired that curse, since the original idea was way back in high school. But I know I was trying to figure out what would be the worst thing I could ever have to deal with. And I'm very much a kinesthetic person. I like being close to my friends. I like to hug. I definitely get that cinnamon roll comment a lot. People definitely are used to me being happy and cheery and sweet. So definitely not being able to be close would be one of it. So what would make it bad? It's like, well, there's only so many things you can do. Why not fire? And having them burn alive from the inside out might have been a little mean, but it definitely gave her a reason to solve it.
Well, looking at these two novels, I have to say, when you're looking at an Unexpected Brew and you look at you, you're like, oh, that's so Fitz. She's just got that sweet personality. And this one, I'm like, really? Still don't know where to go from that because, and you seem really young and it seems so much older than you. It's such a good diversity of writing.
Thank you. I like having a combination of things that really fits whatever people could be looking for. Like the Unexpected Brew is definitely more my, I just want something cutesy and sweet, and Fire Song was more, yeah, let's have something more epic. What would be fun?
And I love the way you had all the earth elements coming together and how they all tied into different branches of magic throughout the community that you created. That was just incredibly well done. So is there any mythology or history that also influences your stories?
Probably not like directly influence. I definitely was that kid that loved reading mythology books and reading everything about ancient Egypt and the different gods from Egypt, the Greeks, the Romans. So I definitely have a lot of random knowledge about those, and I wouldn't be surprised if they came into play, but that wasn't intentional.
Wow. And is writing your full-time job or do you do something else as well?
I wish it was, but it's not right now. I actually work as a chiropractic assistant, so I get to take all the notes about what's going on with everyone and helping them in a completely different way than books do. So it's a completely different life.
Yeah, but where do you find time to write? And how long does it take to put together a book this size? 500 pages?
It really depends. I try to write regularly throughout the week. I try to write at least a little bit every day, if not 5 days a week. I take time in the evening, after dinner, after spending time with my husband. I'll actually, usually about an hour or two, usually from about 8 to 9, 8 to 10, I'll get in all my words. I try to get anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 a day. So it depends. It takes me anywhere from, well, for Fire Song, that would be about 3 to 5 months to write. Unexpected Brew, a lot shorter, probably a month or two. There's some days I manage to get in 5,000 words, so it fluctuates. Some are out really quick and some take a little longer.
Advice for young people for writing, like not just for writing as a professional to tell a story, but with your diverse background, how does it help young people, even if they're just keeping a diary? What's important about writing?
The most important thing is just to actually write, getting things down. You don't get any better unless you write, and I know a lot of people are really having a hard time with like creative blocks and stuff, and it's like, just write. Even if it's just a sentence like, I don't know what to write, so I am putting this down now. I always say that as annoying as it is to hear, you have to turn on the faucet to get any water. You have to actually write to get any words out. And it's hard because there are days where you're like, I don't know what to do with this scene. I don't know what I want to do here. But you can always change it later if it doesn't work. Those ideas can go somewhere else if you want them to. But you got to get it down. So just write.
Great advice. And any other tips what's the next book coming out?
The next book coming out is going to be the final one of my fairy tale series, the one where they all come back in together. My editor's almost done with it, so I'll actually start putting in those changes next week. So that's exciting. That will be called Once Upon an Adventure. So you already can tell they're going on some sort of magical mayhem.
Definitely, that sounds exciting. But I have to tell you, I am just really impressed with the diversity in your writing to go from this. It's just crazy that it came from the same author. It's just so different. So I was really impressed. Thank you so much for sharing how you write these great stories and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. It's always fun being able to talk about them, where all the inspiration and whatnot came from. They're such fun things, and I really enjoy all the different aspects of writing. And magic, there's so much that can be done with, so why not have fun with it?
Great. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want to be thoroughly entertained, you need to look at Jessica. Jessica Mueller's novels are just outstanding, and they can take you from sweet to wow, that's wicked. And not wicked in so many different ways. We'll see you soon.